Now, FFT behavioral health is built on 10 different principles, and it's built on a change protocol that defines each of the stages of change. These core principles serve as the lens through which families, family problems, and clinical change are typically viewed. These principles are very much like what you've heard me talk about already. These are the lens through which, and these define the lenses through which we're going to look at families and problems and behaviors in order to be able to take a family relational perspective. They're not going to be things we talk a lot about, but they're going to be things in which all of our decisions and treatment delivery is going to be based in. Number one, rather than the individual and the individual's behavior as being the central feature in trying to understand how things are working and how things function, we put individual behaviors through the lens of the family and think about individual behaviors in terms of how they're related to other behaviors, how they're connected in relational patterns and meaning systems to the entire family, and to the way in which the family's problem definitions either get them unstuck or help them get on the same page and work together. If you take a family relational perspective, you look at behavior, problems, and different activities through the lens of how it affects everybody and how everybody in that system affects the others. And that means that we believe this. All behavior is part of a multi-systemic relational system. There's multiple mutual interactive components: the youth, the parents, the family, the extended family, and the community, among others. These different components make up a complicated web, a web in which each part is inexorably tied to the other parts. And when you move one, you move another. Thinking this way is really helpful because it means that you can intervene in different ways, and that when you change the behavior of a parent or a caretaker, you may change the behavior of a youth. And when you change the behavior of extended family, you could open up possibilities for the family to function differently. So a multi-systemic focus is important, that it helps you look in a 360-degree way at a behavior in a larger context. Problem and problem behavior, then, taking a family relational perspective, is a complex interaction between that behavior and how it fits into and is impacted by and impacts other person's behavior in that same system. Basically, that means that when a caretaker or a youth behaves badly, that you have to think about what came before and what came after in terms of understanding that, because behavior is very much linked to the behavior of others. Problems, then, are best understood within the same context. If the family is a context to understand in general, then the family is a context to understand problems, and to try to see how the family is a primary unit for understanding that. Because not only will the family be our lens through which we understand problems, but it will be our entryway into how we help both family members and families and individuals change their behavior. Families are not the cause of problems. Families are a context in which mental health, child welfare, behavior problems occur. That's a really important point. You're not looking for the cause in the family. You're looking for the relational context that helps it maintain or promotes it staying. Now think about this. The problems that families struggle with are not so hard to solve. It's pretty easy to end something or begin something new. What's very difficult within the relational context is getting the different actors within that complicated system organized in a way that they can be on the same page. So the context is an important place. Families, as I said, don't cause behavior then, but families are a key factor in both engaging an individual in treatment, building motivation. They provide a context, a way, a platform, a setting in which people can try new behaviors, and they can help individuals stay maintaining a behavior and prevent relapse and provide ongoing support. So rather than a cause, they're a key factor in both change and maintaining change. So at the core of FFT is this notion of a family, right? And if you think a little bit about families, they're remarkable, remarkable systems. They have the ability to absorb all sorts of different activities by an individual person in the family. If you have a problematic youth or a problematic caretaker, families can absorb some of that behavior, and they have the ability to remain stable during that. They also means that families can help redirect some of the difficult experiences of individuals. Family systems can help people change. Individuals change their behavior best when the relational system around them helps support that. It can help improve their behavior, their mental health, their physical health through ongoing support. In many ways, these daily activities that families go through are healing interactions that are best thought of as ways to help the individual right themselves. And at the same time, families are very complex relational systems. They're not easy to understand, in large part because we've been focused and we've been taught to focus on causes rather than context. Think a little bit about how this works in a family system then. You certainly have the people involved, and all of us now know that multisystemic systems have to do with more than the primary client. They have to do with those people that surround the primary client on an everyday basis, whether that be other siblings or other children or caretakers, extended family members, grandparents, partners of the parent, etc. At its first level, family systems are made up of those people. In addition, that family system moves through time through different developmental statuses or stages. Around the family system, there's more. There's a community relational system that involves peer groups, school, community, and extended family. These are systems outside the family that have expectations of them, that understand them in certain ways, that have come to deal with them in certain ways. Important context also for the behavior of people within the system. There's also a cultural context because these family systems and community systems are built within a cultural context that has to do with race, and it has to do with ethnicity and religion, and it has to do with part of the country and setting, whether it's urban or rural in its environment. Those factors also weigh on how and in what way we might want to understand different behaviors of family members. And then, as I said, these families move through this context, the community relational system, in their developmental stages as they move from having young children to being couples, to having young children, to having children with adolescents, to having young adults that they may be supporting. Thinking about clinical problems then, you can think about clinical problems as coming from the family in a way, but less from a causal event and more from an accumulation and what we call stuckness. Think about it. By the time families come to see you, it's not that they just got a problem, they have a pain in their stomach. There's been a struggle that's been going on for some time. It's a little bit like a stone in your shoe. It's an irritation. If it comes out of your shoe, the irritation goes away. If not, that it continues to be there, and then it begins to cause problems. Think about the problem has been that the family's been functioning, they've come across something, they haven't been able to solve it, and now it has become part of them. It's a little as if delinquency, if you have a family in which a youth is a delinquent and involved in the justice system, when they come to the table for dinner, it's them and their delinquency that comes along with them. Same thing with substance use. Members of the family that have a substance abuse issue not only are people, but they also have their substance abuse struggles that come with them as well. And families have learned to wrap themselves around those and help maintain and help support them. In that way, family problems come to function as a central part about how families relate. And from a family relational perspective, it's important to think about where family problems really exist. And they exist in a couple of places. First, they exist in the family's ability and challenge within its context. So for example, if you have a family in the child welfare system, one of the contextual challenges they have is their ability to maintain what's required of them. That interaction and the challenge with responding correctly to an important system around the family is one place in which problems develop. Second, they develop in behavior patterns within the family, meaning that there becomes a behavior pattern that ends up getting managed by the family and then in a weird way maintained by the family as an ongoing way that they do their everyday business, regardless of what the content or what the issue might be. Third, problems exist in the meaning and the problem definitions that people create around different events. If you think about it, events are really actually fairly neutral in their meaning. It is what we put on and what they've come to mean for us and how they're important for us that family problems become a big issue. So meaning and the way in which meaning is put by each individual family member onto a similar event is important. And a problem can exist as people get on different pages about that. And then lastly, problems can exist in what we call relational functions, or in the way in which family members are attached and glued together. We'll talk about relational functions as we move into later sections of the training. So 4 things. The context, can the family meet the needs of the context? The patterns, the meaning, and the functions within how the family is organized. And if you take a family relational perspective, it is within these 4 things that we would see problems existing. In a sense, what happens and what a clinical problem for a family is that they're stuck. I know it's not a very scientific way to say it, but they're stuck. They're stuck in the pattern. It's a stable one. The meanings seem intractable. They're struggling with this context, and their relational function has to have them glued together. And so in many ways, our task is to help families, is to help unstick families so that they can get better solutions, which can also then become stable in the future, and they can be stuck and healthy, positive. What do families really need from us if we take that family relational perspective? And what they need from us are the things that they can't do themselves. They need to find a pathway out of their stuckness. And what I mean by that is if they could get out of this, they would. Families don't like pain. The people in families don't continue with dysfunctional patterns because they get something positive out of it or something that they like. They are just stuck. They're a closed system. They don't know how to move forward. They need then a number of things from us. First of all, they need some help out of the discouragement and their learned helplessness or their lack of motivation to get out. Now, it's important to remember that they're not unmotivated. They've been stuck for a while and they've lost and become discouraged. Building motivation is encouraging them with the possibility that things can be different. They need a reason to take part in treatment. I mean, if you think a little bit about it, many of the families we work with didn't choose to work with us. And so it has to feel as if it is something relevant and for them and not just something for someone else for them to be able to take part. It has to be help that fits them. You can provide help in lots of different ways, but if we can provide help that fits how they work, the likelihood that they can incorporate it and assimilate it into how they work goes up. They need practical help and they need tools. And what I mean by practical help is that if they have trouble making the rent, let's help get them rent assistance. If they need food, let's take care of those practical urgent needs. And then at the end of the day, they need practical help because they need something that they'll be able to use in the future when you're gone in order to continue to solve the many problems that will come their ways. You know, what's interesting is that when they come to you, the families are probably not able to say everything that they need. They come hurting, they come struggling, they come emotional, they come angry at either the system or people around them. It is difficult for them to take those feelings and put it into concrete needs. So some of the things that they need that will help clarify them, some they'll be able to tell us, and other things are just not on their radar in the sense that becoming engaged in a treatment in order to be able to learn skills and maintain them are probably not the words the family would use. What they would say is that they want some help. They want some help that fits them. They want some help that they can keep doing. They want help that'll work. So don't look to the family to be able to tell you each thing they need. One thing they do need, and they will tell you, is this: they need to remain themselves. We don't want to remake them into some version of healthy family. We want them to stay themselves and find unique ways to be healthy, promote their family, and make sure to take care of their children. But we want them to feel empowered to handle their problems more effectively in their way. Number 2, change is really a pathway. Change is not a single skill. Change is not anything magic. Change is not about being able to give the family some tool that they will be able to use. Instead, change is a complicated relational pathway that's most successfully done when we do it in alliance with the family. Now, what's important about that is that we're working together with them to help them meet their needs and to do it in a way in which we know it will work. Again, as I said, some things that they may not have asked for. To do this, it's important that it takes two. The role of the clinician is as an expert. That expert role is as the translator of the FFT model to the family. That happens through the discussions, their thoughtful and purposeful focusing of discussions, and their thoughtful and purposeful focusing of different activities within the session. The family members are experts in their culture, their values, their style, and their characteristics. The family's focus is not on the process of change, but on the outcomes. They want to feel better. They don't really care how they get there. So FFT's change pathway works best when it's done by two experts. The therapist who owns their expertise in the change process, and the family who owns their expertise in understanding themselves. And it takes the two working together for successful change. Part of the way we talk about working together with families is through alliance. And alliance is a term that's worthy of some discussion. And it's a central tool in engagement, motivation, and in each aspect along the way. And alliance basically means that you try to get every member of the family on the same page so that they believe we're all part of the problem, we're all part of the solution, we're all important, and we're all need to be involved in this as we move forward. Now, family alliance is about taking all these individual people and making explicit the connections between them and the fact that each depends on the other and vice versa. Within family alliance is actively promoted by you by creating a safe space for them to address their different problem definitions and ideas so that through the discussion, they come to see the noble intention of each other's behavior. They come to reinterpret the intention that they'd put, and they come to be able to sort through their emotions and be able to see people as doing the best they can do to contribute to the whole family. Family alliance allows the families to build trust, because what happens is that when they build trust, they can reduce negativity and blame, and it facilitates a shared sense of purpose. So while alliance with the therapist or the interventionist is important, alliance between the family members is one of the core building blocks of FFT. Again, it's a little like thinking this way. We want to get everybody on the same page so that while they're on the same page, they can work to the same end. Alliance and collaboration also works, and it's important to do outside of the family system in terms of the community providers as well, because everybody working to the family good is what we're hoping. And that just doesn't happen a lot of times in treatment. Treatment providers pull families in very different ways. So very explicitly in FFT-CCM, we're focusing on being able to organize system collaboration, all for the good of the family. So we have the family and community service providers, and all through FFT, we're going to both contact and collaborate with them, and we're going to provide case management activities to link the family to services that may be useful for them along the way, all to the end product of helping the individual change. So collaboration within the family, within family alliance, and collaboration with the system providers around the family.